Hello everyone and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We're working on the Elite Dangerous Park today. As you know, everyone has basically been asking for this, so I figured now would be a good time to kind of hop back into it. I did say it was going to return in January, so here we are. What I want to do is go ahead and make more facilities, food, and drink areas for our guests to enjoy over in the new section, because the old section is still kind of overcrowded. That's kind of where most of our things like this are housed. So people are, still quite not coming over. Hopefully this will help. And what I'm going to do here initially is go ahead and fill out some base foundations for some interesting shapes just to get started here, and then we'll build up one of these shops. Now this is going to be kind of more of a wider path, high-tech almost shopping district that you will find in any major city. So this is going to have multiple layers to it. It's going to have shops on the upper floors, things like that eventually, and pathways and bridges cutting across overhead. So hopefully the skyline and all that cool stuff is going to be pretty cool looking in the long run. So we're just going to go ahead though and continue on with kind of this basic sci-fi motif that we've kind of established throughout the rest of the episodes. Now I'm going to be recoloring these eventually and making this area stand out, make it look a little different than the previous section, because they used a lot of gray and kind of rusty, broken down colors. This one will be a little bit more bright, vibrant, a lot more possibly neon signs eventually, so that's something to look forward to. What we're working on now is kind of a large window section, and we'll be turning this little grass area into a seating area eventually, and it'll have like a slight covered section as well. But I'm just using the modern windows, the wooden planks colored orange, to give us some break in those, to give them some proper supporting beams to break up the window panes, to make them look like larger, just semicircle kind of shapes, and make them look like one solid piece. We're going to lay down some railings, and these railings will mark out where the seating area will be, and then we'll be making some benches and things here near the end. Now the flooring here, I always think about doing metal, because we did do this in the previous section before, kind of these metal plateaus. But I didn't really like how mismatched it was. It was a little too kind of dirty looking, So what I ended up doing is removing that, going with just a nice wooden deck, because even though it's sci-fi, I doubt they would stop using wood. They can use that until it's a renewable resource, and it is a good resource to use, so they might as well just use that. They'll just color it a dark color to separate that from the rest of the building, make that look really kind of grounded. That's the idea. Darker colors down low, for me, kind of represent a grounding type of thing. And then if you go lighter colors up top, the building might look a little bit more airy up there and a little bit more vibrant. At least that'll give you a good contrast kind of base idea to work from. You don't have to necessarily follow these design rules. They're just kind of basic things that you do to try, and then you bend them and you warp them to try and make them your own and in more of an interesting shape than what you initially had. Now we're just going to copy the windows and just drag them up vertically and make that kind of a taller section. At this point, went ahead and just kind of finish off the shape of this initial structure here, and this is the first structure that we're going to be just completing. We can't complete it all the way because this is attached to another shop, and so we're going to build this first, build the shop next to it, try and work out how they're going to mix together, and then at that point we'll worry about more of the pathways and miscellaneous things that are going to kind of fill up the dead space, such as the signs, metal struts, wires, cables, things like that. That's kind of a secondary detail beyond just building shape and the height that we want to kind of establish. So the windows here, you know, very similar to how we do like the backdrop on the kind of sci-fi cityscape. You know, you want to kind of put a lot of windows up tall. That way, you know, when you're down low and it's nighttime, it looks like it's a little bit taller than it actually is. You can house a lot more things than it actually does. And it makes it look a little bit more like a city, you know. We'll have a little bit of an air conditioner unit with a little overhanged roof line there, just so that we can protect that from possible weather events. Maybe they just don't want to get that thing wet. Who knows? You can just kind of make up little stories as you go along when you're making these things. We're going to go ahead and establish kind of the shop up there. Some supporting struts down below so that we can actually make a path that will function. A little bit of a guardrail. You know, you want to make that a safe place for your guests to be. And then we'll go back over here using vents and kind of metal roofing, the corrugated metal, to complete some roofing elements just over the bathroom entrances. I don't want to use the corrugated metal too much in this section just because that's a little bit more of a slum-like detail for me, but I'm fine with it just over the restrooms there because that's kind of a, you know, a not important kind of structure, so I'm sure they would kind of maybe use some lesser materials with that. We're going to be using the large wedge here to get a circle-like umbrella effect going around the windows. And we'll also use some of these pistons and other items to kind of seal in those seams. Those seams kind of are a little ugly, so I'm just trying to figure out what will work there. And these kind of had to be placed by hand. They're not quite aligned perfectly, so it's just easier to do it by hand quickly. They're about a 15-degree offset angle though, so as long as you know that, you can generally do that kind of quick enough. And even throw in these kind of space feeling elements. They're like the sci-fi panels without the actual buttons on them. So that will provide some ridges and some extra roof detailing that makes it look like it might be a little bit more of a solid structure. Now back here, we want to use these turrets as little antennas. You know, if you point them vertically, no one's really going to know much, except for it's a slightly round object with these poles attached to it. From above, it might look like turrets, but you know, from below, it should be pretty fine. Using some spaceship parts to kind of fill in some larger empty space details, because that's great for doing that kind of thing. It's a little cheaty, but it works. So if it works, I'll use it. Now at this point, I realize the path is just a little too rounded there, and I want to try and fix this to make it a square path, because trying to get this thing perfectly lined up to the supporting grid, I think was going to be really important, just because I don't want to show anything beneath the actual path that people are walking on. So they're going to be walking on that kind of dark concrete that's kind of supported by these metal struts. And then we can replace the rounded wall element there with some of the final details. Now above the awning, I wanted to kind of seal off some more windows. That way it doesn't look like the awning is necessarily just sticking into the glass itself, and it actually has kind of a supporting metal frame that is attached to and kind of can carry a little bit more believability to it. Coloring it orange, for some reason I just wanted this building to be orange and have some orange kind of supports. Even these metal beams and things, we're just going to color orange and make that kind of pop up. That's kind of our first color that we're going to be using. We're going to be using some others like blues, reds, and you'll see that here in a second as well, probably near the end. And at this point, we're just going to go ahead and finish the speed build by building these little booths and tables. You guys have seen this before. These ones are slightly different than at the Sidewinder bar and grill. They're actually a little bit more clean. You know, the first set of booths that we made were good practice for this, and we do have some new pieces to work with since then, so we might as well use them to fill in some of the smaller details. And we just want to run these along the edge here, just for a nice little decorative element, so people could look like they could sit around and enjoy the overall space. So let's go ahead and take a look at it in real time. You guys can give me your feedback, and we will end the episode there. All right, this is kind of the finished little left building of the entryway into the shopping center that's over here. That's going to be kind of sealing off the northern area of the park. We're also going to end up making some sort of weenie, possibly a ride skin at the very end of it. That's why the road kind of just cuts off there. Of course, we have a lot of detailing that we need to figure out as well, and hopefully you guys can come up with some cool ideas. There's some interesting shapes from the pathways here to fill in, and of course another ride skin to do around the little hyperspin one that's behind the Sidewinder bar and grill. So hopefully we'll be able to do that relatively soon, but I want to finish this area first just so our guests kind of maintain their happiness. Let's go ahead and down here so you guys can take in some of the little bits of detail. We have a little bit of an exhaust pipe here. Don't know why it's there, but it could be exhausting something. I could put the SFX kind of smoke, kind of shooting up some steam, but it's not really something I want to do just for frame rate reasons. I'm only really getting 30 FPS, and that's where, you know, I'm kind of holding off until the very end to add any more kind of heavy effects like that. But it is a relatively tall building. I do like the little detail kind of sticking up in the middle there. We have, you know, some little planters with some small flowers because we're getting into the more luxury side of the park, and we want to actually introduce some greenery and decor that should match their wealth. Around here, you know, just the normal kind of covering that we were working on, the seating and the large window bay that kind of just attaches and merges up the main spire of the structure. And over here we just have, I fit in a little ATM machine, which is nice. I want to try and fit those in where I can so people can get some money to spend in this area, and that way they don't have to go back to the previous area as much. Here is the first walkway that's going to be slowly worked on. I need to build this structure first before we can incorporate this catwalk into it, and hopefully we can get that to cross the street into here. I want to have about one, maybe two shops inside each upper floor deck and have this whole kind of catwalk system servicing them. So I think that's going to do us for this episode of Planet Coaster and the Elite Dangerous Park. I know it's a little bit of a shorter episode, but it's a little rough just kind of switching back to sci-fi. Sci-fi for me still is not really my best theme. It's pretty hard for me to do and a little strenuous for me to kind of force out structures for this. So the break did me well, and hopefully we'll be able to continue work full steam ahead for the rest of the park. I do like the view down here, just because the red roof and the red Sidewinder bar and grill kind of work together here. And as you're kind of just passing through, hopefully as we get taller buildings, this will just kind of fill in the skyline for you. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the episode, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more creative goodness such as this. Go ahead and hit that like button, and I will see you guys next time.